Hello! I'm a little bit late to this because I was traveling at the beginning of the year, but I'm gonna be setting up my 2025 bullet journal and I figured I would show you what it's gonna look like for this year. I haven't done a bullet journal video in a very long time, but I have been keeping up with it for about 5 years or so, I think. And in those 5 years, I feel like I've really figured out what works for me and what doesn't. Overall, I think I just like a very simple kind of setup, at least in comparison to some of the things that I see here on YouTube. But yeah, this is just what works for me. Hopefully you can get some inspiration from it, and let's go ahead and get started. First, let me tell you about my supplies. I love using Muji pens, specifically the 0.5 ones. I have a bunch of black ones, but then occasionally I'll also use some of the other colors that I have. I also like to use the Zebra mild liners, which have 2 different sides. The Tombow dual brush pens, which also have 2 different sides to them. They have like a thicker calligraphy side and then a thinner side. And I also have been really loving these calligraphy brush pens from Notebook Therapy. They come in different sizes, or like different thicknesses, I guess. And then the most important thing is my bullet journal, of course. This one is from Notebook Therapy. I love the gold detailing, like the gold edges and stuff. And this one has a velvet cover, which, if I'm being honest, I think I preferred my last one with the vegan leather cover. The velvet one kind of attracts like lint and dust, I'd say, and I have a white cat, so sometimes I find his fur stuck on it. So I don't know, I feel like I would recommend the leather one if you're looking into getting one. But either way, what I love the most about it is honestly the paper thickness. It is 160 GSM, so I get absolutely no bleed through or ghosting, which really bugged me with some of my old bullet journals. But yeah, I'll leave everything linked down below. Honestly, I think just find anything that works for you and your budget. Now let's get started with the 2025 cover page. I actually used some of this journal to finish out 2024, so it's not right on the first page of this journal. But anyways, like I said, I like to keep things very simple, at least in comparison to some of the crazy good creative setups that I see here on YouTube. So I'm just using one of the Tombow brush pens to create a very simple border at the top and the bottom. Then I'm just writing 2025 on one side in letters using my brush pen, and then on the other side I'm doing it again in numbers. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Let's move on to my yearly goals page. So I'm just writing 2025 goals on both pages. I feel like writing down my goals physically every year has been very helpful, although I also do like to keep them on my Notion as well. I like having both digital and physical. And apparently there's a stat from this study that says that writing down your goals makes you like 42% more likely to accomplish them. So, you know, we might as well take advantage of this and write them down. So I'm just making little boxes for the different categories I like to do for my goals. I find that breaking it down like that makes it seem less daunting and more organized to me. So I do personal, acting, health, financial, social/relationship, and other. So for my personal goals, I'm writing the same goal that I've had for years now, which is to read at least 12 books a year. That is 1 book per month, and that just feels very doable and achievable for me. Then I have watch at least 75 movies. I watched 78 last year, so I know that this is a doable goal for me as well. I am an actress, so keeping up with films is something that is important to me. I have to track my habits every single month, which I do with this bullet journal, but this makes sure that I stay on top of it and don't skip a month. And then I have make some physical photo albums, which I've been really wanting to do for a while now. I'm probably gonna write a couple of others later as well. Then moving on to my acting goals, I'm putting book a lead role in a feature film, then book a series regular role in a TV show. I feel like those are the 2 things that I really want to shoot for this year. I'm gonna be really crossing my fingers for that. And then I have to be a full-time working actor again. Last year was a little bit rough since the industry was still getting back up on its feet after the strike. So I'm hoping that this year will allow me to go back to being a full-time actress again like I used to be. And then I have a couple of others that I'm just gonna choose to keep private. For health and fitness, I'm putting gain some flexibility and get my front splits. I've been wanting to do this for so long and get some better range of motion in my body. And for the other health and fitness goals, I'm also gonna choose to just keep them private, but you get the idea. And then for my financial goals, I'm also choosing to keep them all private, but essentially it's like income goals, how much I want to be having in my savings account by the end of the year, learning more about investing and just gaining some better financial literacy, etc. For social and relationship, my grandpa actually lives in Colombia, so I'm writing down to call him at least once a month, hopefully more than that, but that serves as a good reminder to do that as it's something that really matters to me. I'm keeping a few others private, but essentially they're just reminders that my relationships in life are also something that I should put time and energy into because they matter like the other areas in my life do. I feel like this is an area that's easy to forget when we're goal setting. And for other, I'm writing hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now that I'm back on here, I definitely want to be posting more consistently, and I feel like that's a good, doable goal for me. So maybe you can help me reach it by hitting that subscribe button. And I'm actually blurring the rest of them out as well. But at the end of the day, I feel like you get the idea of what this page looks like, even if you can't fully see it. And if I find myself still wanting to add some goals as the year progresses, then I typically just add them onto my Notion. There's still a couple of blank spots in my bullet journal, so I'll add them there as well. But I do like having both the digital and physical one for this one. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this page. One of the pages I really have liked every year is my things I did page. I essentially write down what I got up to in the year. I write things either as they happen or when I sit down to do my monthly recap, then I'll put monthly things in here, and at the end of the year, then they're all in there. So it's not done all at once at the end of the year, it's more so as the year progresses. And it can really be anything from I got coffee with X person, or I went paddleboarding, to something bigger like I booked a new TV show. I feel like sometimes it's easy to feel like we haven't really done much, and doing this as I go and also looking at it at the end of the year is a good reminder to appreciate both the mundane things in life, like grabbing a coffee with a friend, but also seeing the bigger accomplishments and just seeing the year all laid out like that in a few pages. So as you've seen, I've made a column to put the date down, then a column to write what the thing was, and I find that 6 pages is a good amount for me. So I'm just switching up the font and the color to make them just look a little bit different. And that is pretty much it for my 2025 yearly pages. I know that a lot of people like to do a lot more, and in the past I actually had pages for things like books I've read, movies I've watched. I even had an income tracker at one point, but I really feel like I like to keep track of those things digitally instead. So I'll use Goodreads for my books, Letterboxd for movies, and then for everything financial, I use Excel. And anything else, I pretty much use either my calendar or my Notion. So yeah, it's a pretty simple yearly setup, but I just like to supplement it with digital platforms as well. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the January setup. I don't really do cover pages for each month. Instead, I start the month with a goals page. I kind of wanted to recreate my setup that I did for August last year. I really liked it, and I wanted to start the year with something pretty similar. So I'm just using this blue Tombow brush pen to make a couple of stars on each corner, and then connecting the stars with some lines, using the thicker end for the middle line and then the thinner for the outer ones. Then I'm using the black brush pen to make the January goals title. And each month I have some pretty similar goals, and some of those tend to contribute to the bigger picture yearly goals. So for example, I have a goal to read at least 1 book every month, and that will contribute to the 12 books yearly goal. I have write 4 journal entries, watch at least 6 movies a month, which if you remember, I have a yearly goal of 75 movies because I'm an actress and I want to stay educated in the film world. So that tries to get me pretty close to that goal. I also have book 1 acting job, which I sadly don't think is going to be happening this month because it's been pretty slow, but this is a goal that I like to write down every single month anyways. I have a minimum income, which again contributes to my bigger picture yearly goal. I am blurring out that amount and also blurring out a couple of other goals for privacy, but you get the idea. Now for the habit tracker, which is probably my favorite part of my bullet journal. I feel like this is the thing that really keeps my life together and keeps me on track. I'm using the brush pen to create the title. I pretty much always do these calligraphy letters for the word habit and then uppercase for the word tracker. I started habit tracking like 5 years ago after I read Atomic Habits by James Clear, which by the way changed my outlook on a lot of things, so I highly recommend that book. But this is such a good visual way to have things laid out for me. I fill it out during my nighttime routine, and I love the satisfaction that I get from filling a square in. I feel like it gives me such a good sense of accomplishment, which in turn motivates me to continue doing it the next day. It kind of feels like a game to me, and I'm keeping score. And if I have a streak going and I've done something a few days in a row, then I don't want to break that streak, so that's also motivational. But if I do break the streak, then I still have a pretty good visual reminder and proof that I've been doing a good job, even if I miss a few days in the month. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I used to use a ruler when I first started bullet journaling, but now I can't be bothered to do that. I just need it to be functional. It doesn't need to be perfect, and this is definitely less time consuming for me. So anyways, the first row is for things surrounding my mind. So I have reading, journaling, and meditating. Then I have things surrounding my body. So there's exercise, stretching, and skincare. And then the last row is for a few other things, so being productive, and that's a little subjective, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea of when I can check it off and when I don't now. Then there's playing guitar and being up by 9:30 a.m., which I know someone out there is judging me for that, but I'm a pretty big night owl, and especially after the holidays, I feel like that's a good wake up time for me that I don't really consider sleeping in, and also lets me get a good like 8 hours of sleep or so. I'm hoping to make it earlier for next month, but for now, for January, that's what it's gonna be. And then of course you can just see I'm filling out the days of the week, and that will be it for the habit tracker. For my monthly recap page, I use the same color as the previous page, then I make the title with the brush pen on both pages. And the first thing that I recap is my habits, so just writing them all down and then leaving a blank spot to fill out before the 31 for the 31 days in January. So when I fill it out at the end of the month, it would be like 18 out of 31 days reading, or whatever the number was for each habit. I still get the visual aspect of this sort of recap with the previous page, but I also like writing it down like this and, counting the days out from the habit tracker in the previous page, just so that I have a number attached to it as well. Then I have a things I did / highlights. I'll write some of my favorite things that I got up to, and some of these also will make it into my things I did in 2025 page. I'll typically write both at the same time for the bigger picture yearly recap as well. And then I have an acting section. I'll write the total number of auditions I had, my favorite thing that I auditioned for, classes I took if I took any, scenes I did, etc. But I obviously can't write this in yet. And then depending on how much space I have left, I'll have an other thoughts section where I typically just reflect on the month and what went well, what I could have done better, how I felt, etc. And yeah, that is pretty much it for my 2025 setup and January setup. Here's a final flip through of everything. Again, I really love how quick and simple it is for me. I really like the purpose that it serves in my life, especially in combination with the digital tools that I use. It definitely helps me keep my life together a lot better. And that is it. Maybe you can take some inspiration from it, and hopefully I'll catch you in my next video.